Hello, everyone. This is yours truly, J Blue 68. Today is April the 27th, the day after the release, worldwide release of Avengers Endgame, a movie I thoroughly enjoyed. I plan on seeing again tomorrow, but I'm staying indoors today just to get some rest and actually finish up some videos. This being one of them. And as you can see in front of you, I'm doing something different outside of Marvel stuff. And this has to deal with one of my other favorite topics, or not so favorite topics, and that is Star Wars. And I guess I say that being not so favorite because without being a troll and crapping all over the new trilogy, I am not a fan of the new trilogy that's currently being done. There's one more film left in this new trilogy, and that's, of course, episode 9, which has been currently, well, I should say the trailer's recently been released, and it's titled, I think, The Rise of Skywalker. I'm sorry, to me it makes no sense at all. If you hear some music in the background, that's actually the score or the soundtrack to Star Wars Rogue one of my favorite Star Wars movies or installments. I thought that was very well done. But what we're going to do now is a comic book haul for the Dark Horse Comics production of the Star Wars saga. And in front of you, you see one of the first installments of that series, and that's Tales of the Jedi. Now, Tales of the Jedi came out in the early 90s. That was during a dark time in my own life personally, which I won't discuss. But this was around the time I started getting back into collecting after dealing with some personal issues with a person that I was dealing with during the time. But like I said, I won't really get into that. I'm just very thankful that I got back into collecting, and I've had these books now for about close to 20 years. I think, they came out. Tales of the Jedi came out in 93 or 94. And remember, I was talking about in a couple videos back about keeping your books in Mylars. Look how fantastic this book looks. I mean, just look at that. It looks brand new. This book came out in 93, and this is what's considered a hard shell. This is like hard shell plastic in terms of how Mylars are produced. You have the soft Mylars with the cardboard inside of them, and then you have these kind, a little bit more harder and durable. They remain airtight, keep air and any type of dust or bacteria from getting to the comic book itself. But anyway, I just like to emphasize comic book maintenance. If you want to keep your comic books in good shape and maintain some type of value. But anyway, Tales of the Jedi. At one point in time, before Dark Horse Comics started producing Star Wars comics, Marvel was the first producer of Star Wars comics from the 70s through the 80s. In the 70s, they had some very good runs on the Star Wars storylines or the Star Wars saga. But in the 80s, a lot of the stories from under the Marvel helm became very crappy, and that was actually during the time that Marvel was going through a thing, and around the time that Marvel was going bankrupt. And the comic books they were producing during that time weren't all that great. And I think that's considered the contemporary age or whatever. But in any case, during that time they were producing Star Wars comic books. In the 90s, Dark Horse Comics took over the Star Wars saga, and what I consider to be the golden age of Dark Horse Comics. They were also producing Hellboy comics, and they were also producing, what is the other comic book series that's pretty popular that they were doing and still are doing? I can't recall right now, but I know that Hellboy is one of their productions. And by the way, I did see the Hellboy movie. I decided not to do a review of it because I actually walked out of the movie theater because I thought it was an absolutely horrible movie. More of that later or not. Anyway, back to Star Wars. So this was a golden age, I consider, of Dark Horse Comics, which was in the early 90s. Tales of the Jedi remains to me a magnificent storyline, one of the best storylines ever told in comic book form as it pertains to the Star Wars saga. And on the cover here, this is a 5-part series written by Kevin J. Anderson, the gentleman I met last year at the Michigan Comic Con. This story takes place 5,000 years before the Galactic Civil War and before the birth of Jedi Master Yoda. The storyline starts off simple but gets very complicated and dark as the stories progress. We learn that during this age, things were a whole lot different for the Jedi Knights and the Jedi Order. I'm just going to show you the books really quick. All 5. You kind of stand up here. I absolutely love these covers, man. And again, I pride myself and pat myself on the back for keeping these in the shape that they are in. Do I plan on selling them? Absolutely not. Again, a collector does not buy things just to sell them. Okay? That's book number 2 there. Well, let me go back to book number 1. Now this is Jedi Knight Ulic Qel-Droma. And behind him are the Jedi Knights of his time. And again, this was 5,000 years before the birth of Master Yoda. And the Jedi Knights did not address in the manner of which they did during the time of Yoda necessarily. You know, where you see them in the robes the Jedi robes you see them in, which are the brown robes. They did. Some Jedi Knights wore robes, but others dressed like this particular Jedi Knight here. And his name, by the way, is Ulic Qel-Droma. Ulic Qel-Droma was the brother, or has a brother who is also a Jedi Knight, named Kay Qel-Droma. What I love about this drawing is you see all the different arms wielding lightsabers in adulation and in unity. But the arms that you see, or the hands that you see, are alien. Most of them are alien. Which showed that the Jedi Knights during that time and during the time of Yoda came from different races across the galaxy. And I really love that representation. That anyone can be a Jedi as long as they were able to wield, or were born to wield, the Force itself. What's also interesting about this drawing is, I think Tom Veitch did the drawings. Kevin J. Anderson was the writer. The drawing looks very much like Val Kilmer. Now, Val Kilmer was hot stuff back in the 90s. He was also featured in a Lucasfilm movie called Time Bandits, which also starred the late Kenny Baker. So we always speculated that it may be a possibility that Val Kilmer would be featured in a Star Wars movie eventually, but that never happened. But yeah, Val Kilmer was hot stuff back in the day. You know, he played in one of the Batman movies. He was in Time Bandits, as I mentioned. He was also in the movie Heat, which starred Al Pacino and Robert De Niro, one of my favorite movies. But that looks very much like Val Kilmer. I say that even to this day. But it's a very good rendering of this particular character. And I guess, again, they must have used Mr. Kilmer as a template to draw Ulic Qel-Droma. Book number 2 features Jedi Knight Tat Danita. Now, Tat Danita is a member of the Twi'lek race. You know, the Twi'leks were... One of the Twi'leks that we know that's very popular in the Star Wars saga is Bib Fortuna, who was a henchman for Jabba the Hutt. It looks like he's attacking some pirates or something like that. Here is Jedi Knight Nomi Sunrider. Now, what's really interesting about this cover In terms of the story of Tales of the Jedi, during the time of these particular Jedi Knights were allowed to marry and have children. This is Jedi Knight Nomi Sunrider holding her baby, her infant daughter, and there's her husband right there lying dead. And if I can recall in this story, they were attacked by pirates who came to the planet to pillage it, to her homeworld to pillage the planet. She eventually liberates the planet or her village, and of course saves her daughter too. But unfortunately, her husband, who was a Jedi Knight as well, paid the ultimate price with his life confronting these pirates. The other thing too, the Jedi Knight that I just showed you, or both the two Jedi Knights I just showed you, both Tat Danita and Ulic Qel-Droma. Ulic Qel-Droma has a brother, or had a brother named Kay Qel-Droma. During the time of Tales of the Jedi, during the times of this particular era of the Jedi Knights, unlike the time of Master Yoda, Jedi Masters were allowed to have more than one apprentice at a time. Ulic Qel-Droma's Jedi Master was a master by the name of Arca, Jedi Master Arca. He had 3 Jedi apprentices, Ulic and Kay Qel-Droma and the Jedi Knight Tat Danita. They could have up to 3 to 5 apprentices, versus during the time of Master Yoda, where a Jedi could only have 1 apprentice. For instance, Qui-Gon Jinn was the Jedi Master and trainer of Obi-Wan Kenobi. So they could only have 1 apprentice at a time. And there was a reason for that, which we'll get into in later videos. I plan on doing these videos in a 5-part series, and the reason why, because there are 5 installments of Tales of the Jedi. So we're going to do it in a 5-part series. This is the first installment that I'm doing. And there's a hut right there. It looks like Jabba the Hutt, but that's not Jabba. That's actually another hut. But they weren't very creative when they did this cover. They just used a rendering of Jabba. But the Hutts played a very instrumental part in these stories. And here's the final book, number 5 of 5, which features Nomi Sunrider again. And there is the Jedi Master Thrawn. Jedi Master Thrawn looks like a dinosaur. He looked like a creature from the Jurassic Age, almost like a brontosaurus or something like that. But there's her Jedi Master standing behind her as they're once again being attacked by pirates. There was a lot of crime going on during these times. This was a time of the old Republic. And what I loved about Tales of the Jedi, unlike a lot of the video games, which, like, for instance, I think it's called Knights of the Old Republic. What I don't like about Knights of the Old Republic, it still looked very contemporary. It looked very modernistic, versus these books and the artwork here, which made the Jedi look very old and ancient, which they should have, because again, this is 5,000 years ago. I want to show you some of the other books, but I'm not going to get into them, because again, I want to do this over a series of videos so you can kind of get a gist of what the stories were about. But these were the first stories, simply called Tales of the Jedi, which introduce you to 3 primary Jedi Knights. Again, Nomi Sunrider, as you see here, and Ulic Qel-Droma, his brother Kay Qel-Droma, and Tat Danita, and the primary or main Jedi Masters being Master Arca and Master Thrawn. Some of the best writing ever done for Star Wars for a comic book series, which I wished would have been either an animated series, done as an animated series, or even live action. I love Star Wars Clone Wars. I thought that Star Wars Clone Wars was brilliant, very well done. But I always wish that these stories would have been done first. I can appreciate them still in their comic book form, even if they're never ever told or translated into an animated series or live action. I'm aware that Star Wars is going to be going on a much needed hiatus after episode 9. And I don't think that episodes 7 or 8 have done the Star Wars saga any true justice at all. But again, I'm not here to troll on that. I just want to show my subscribers an alternate version of Star Wars, which actually stayed within the canon of George Lucas's vision, because they were 5,000 years ago, before, again, the Galactic Civil War and the time of Yoda. The brilliance of them doing it that way is it does not interfere with any of the main canon at all. But here's some of the other books we'll get into in later videos. Let's see about, just move this over here. The next follow-up story to Tales of the Jedi is Dark Lords of the Sith. And again, look at the magnificent artwork there. And that's Ula Kildroma and Nomi Sunrider leading an army of Republic ships against the Dark Lords of the Sith, as the beginning of the Sith War starts in this particular series. But I actually should have showed you these two comics first, because before Dark Lords of the Sith, we have the Frida Knot Uprising, which deals with a cult of young Jedi who are following the teachings of the Dark Jedi Knights, or Dark Jedi, and their interest in the dark side of the Force. Beautiful cover there. And this was only, there were only 2 books in this particular series. And there they are. There's Ula Kildroma, Nomi Sunrider, and Tat Danita. Nomi Sunrider's Jedi Master was, as I showed you just a moment ago, was Jedi Master Thawne. But these two were trained by Jedi Master Arca. Wonderful story. If you don't mind reading comic books, and if you can even find these books, because I believe they're out of print now. These are original prints. These are not reprints. I didn't buy them in a flea market or anything like that. And not knocking that particular venue. If you happen to find comic books in a flea market, and if they have some particular value to you or value period, definitely buy them. But these are original purchases. So next up is, let's see, after this is Golden Age of the Sith, which tells, just like the title says, the Golden Age of the Sith Lords and the Sith Empire and how they reigned. And we'll get into this story later on in later videos. I don't think you can see that. My apologies. Let me just move this back here. That was a little bit too close to the camera. There you go. So this is Golden Age of the Sith here. And then we get into the fall of the Sith Empire. Sorry about that. Fall of the Sith Empire, which is told in a 5-part series, and then Golden Age of the Sith, also told in a 5-part series. And last but not least, the Sith War. And the thing about the Sith War shows the very first appearance of the Mandalorian warriors. Before you've seen them in Tales of the Jedi, in the Clone Wars animated series, and before the coming of the eventual show, which will be directed by Jon Favreau, which will be called Mandalorian. This is the very first appearance ever of the Mandalorian warriors. Also, the very first appearance of a double-edged lightsaber was not Darth Maul. The very first appearance of a double-edged lightsaber was actually told in these stories here. Tales of the Jedi. Let me see if I can find the book. Now, it's not here. It's probably in the Sith War. Let me see if I can find it. Here we go. Here was the very first appearance of the double-edged lightsaber. It was not in Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. Because again, these books were done in '94. Phantom Menace came out in 1999. close to 8 years after this particular series. And that's one of the Dark Lords of the Sith here, Exar Kun, fighting an alien Jedi Master. So this was actually the first appearance of a double-edged lightsaber. It was the first time we ever seen a double-edged lightsaber, and the first time we ever seen the Mandalorian warriors. So I highly recommend this particular series. If you can find it still, definitely do purchase it and read all the books. And again, I'll get more into the other books in later videos. I just wanted to show you the first series of this 5-part series. It's actually a 6-part series. I'm sorry. The last installment is called Redemption, but I don't have that with me at this time. When we do the other videos, we'll get into, hopefully I'll have that stash with me when I do the next video, which will be hopefully very soon. Anyway, that's it. That's all. Tales of the Jedi, the best Star Wars story ever written in comic book series, rivals almost what's been done on screen. In my opinion, recommended for reading, definitely. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you do, please hit the like button and subscribe. That's it. That's all, y'all. Peace, love, and hair grease.